Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another segment of my program, Straight Talk with Grover Thornton, a program designed to inspire, educate, and to inform you how government works in our country for all of us. And welcome to the show again. This year, so far, we've had a lot of problems in this nation, and I hope everybody enjoyed the 4th of July for relaxation. Now it's time for all of us to get back to work. But when I think of the 4th of July, we were not citizens, so I enjoyed the day when my grandchildren were here, sliding on the water slide in the yard with my grandson children and my great-grandchildren. And I think about the fact that during that time, we were slaves. We were not even involved in the construction of this nation. When you read the preamble of the Constitution, it says, "We the people, in order to form a more perfect union," etc., etc. That did not involve us because we were not a part of that. We did not become a citizen of this nation until 92 years later, after the Civil War, when the 14th Amendment of the Constitution was adopted in 1868. That was 92 years from the time that this nation was installed into this nation. Now, let me just say this to you. We know a terrible situation has been guns in this nation. This nation has more guns than any other nation in the world. This nation, a lot of these young men that buy guns, these terrible AR-15 weapons at 18 years old. Now they just signed a law to have a little bit of, the president signed a little bit of background checks. I don't know why the NRA does not want to eradicate these terrible weapons off the street in this nation. These weapons are terrible. The bullet break bones and just bust you all open. So we just have to see what we can do about this terrible thing. Now, I do not condone any violence, whether it's a gun, a handgun, or nothing like that. We need to sit down and solve our problems without violence. Like Mahatma Gandhi said, the man that Dr. King took his philosophy and put it into action in this country. He said, we must be the change that we want to see. So if we want to change these things, we're going to have to do things for ourselves. Now, I'm going to talk about this abortion thing when I just finish this. We've had a lot of mass shootings, over 309 mass shootings so far in this year. They constitute a mass shooting when 3 or 4 people die at one time. That's a mass shooting. And we know what happened in that school in Texas. We know what happened in Buffalo. And we know what happened the other day in this parade. And the lady said how important this city was, very clean a city without any violence. And all of a sudden, I was sitting down listening, and something struck me. That word, Highland Park. I said, no, it's something about in my mind over 50 years ago that struck me. Highland Park. You know what that was, ladies and gentlemen? I remember it very distinctly. It was located 30 miles from Chicago. That was stuck in my mind, the Highland Park. And it came to my mind in my reasoning that was a day in 1968, I believe it was, that Dr. King led a demonstration for fair housing in Highland Park. They threw bricks, they threw bottles, and injured a lot of people that were marching for open housing in that city. So this business about how it was such a this and that, it was a racist place. In fact, this is what they had in part of their covenant in that city. And it's in dealing with properties. These premises should not be sold, leased, or conveyed to any person of color of African blood. Now, keep in mind now, this is supposed to be the great country of democracy. So I wanted just to bring that out and talk about these guns. That man had no business being able to purchase a gun. The next thing I want to talk about, a very important subject is going in this nation today, and that is the subject of abortion. After more than 50 years almost, they decide to take away the reproduction of a woman's body. That is a personal decision of a lady between herself and God. Now, they really don't know when life begins. Does it begin when the egg cell hits the sperm cell? Or does it occur several weeks later? Sometimes a woman goes six weeks before she even knows she's pregnant. And all these laws have to do with that. Well, I'm going to tell you, everybody in this country is entitled to their own thinking about this particular problem, this abortion problem. And when I get through saying this statement, I'm going to tell you how they can solve this problem. Very simple to solve this problem. Did you see last week on the television where a 10-year-old girl was raped and pregnant? Under the law that she was in, that said abortion was a trigger abortion, immediately abortion was banned. So they had to send that 10-year-old child to Michigan, I believe it was, Michigan, either California, to get an abortion because she was raped. A 10-year-old baby. So these are the problems that the ladies have to deal with. Now this abortion thing is real serious. But let me tell you what my personal view of abortion is and why they want to ban abortion. They may not tell you that. They do a lot of things undercover that you don't know. But I'm even living the dead. Years to come, you're going to see this going to come up just as sure as my name, Grover Thornton. And this is my personal view. My personal view. And this is it. The white race has the majority of citizens in this nation. We have the African Americans, the Latinos, and the Asians. Keep that in mind. They've already said in the next 25 or 30 years, these three groups of races will be the majority in this nation. Therefore, the whites will become the minority. And they don't want that to happen. So how you can stop that? Abortion. And they already got the number high more than any of these races. And that when you don't have the abortion, 9 out of 10, the babies have to be born. So when the babies are born, they're added to that number that's already got the majority. Now, where is the wall, the border, at the border? It's at the southern part of the continent. It's not on the northern part where Canada is. Why didn't we have no wall around Canada? They only got it towards the southern border. Because the more those people come in and the more babies they have, they will sooner or later dilute the majority. They ain't going to tell you that, but that's my personal thinking. Because these poor white babies, people can't go no. How they talk about down in the mountains in Tennessee go to California and have an abortion? They got no money. If you go to that place where you had the money, you don't get abortion on demand. You may have to stay a week. You may have to stay 3-4 days. Where would you get the money from motels, hotels, food? A lot of problems involved in this abortion business. And that is my personal thinking about this abortion. You all just think about that. Just like in South Africa, majority of the black people were the majority, but the white folks in the minority. I mean, we're in the majority and the blacks were the minority. And that's why they ran South Africa. Until black people started demanding it and the world opinions got onto them. And that's why they finally let Mandela out of prison. 7 years in jail for the man wanting to be treated as a man created in the image of Almighty God. But when I ask God every day to give me knowledge so I can impart my information and my knowledge to my people, that they can pass it down to their children. In fact, I'm like Solomon. I don't ask God for riches. I don't ask God to destroy my enemies. So God came to Solomon. Solomon became king. David was his father. Solomon said these words: God, give me the knowledge that I can rule your people fairly and justly. And God told him, said, since you did not ask me for riches, God told him, you did not ask me to destroy anybody, I will give you what you request. You will be the wisest man that I've ever made. Excluding Jesus now, because Jesus was man and God. Not including Jesus. A natural man like me. Solomon became the wisest man. People came all over the world. Kings and queens for the wisdom of Solomon. One time a lady brought two ladies, one lady had a baby, and two ladies said, that's my baby. And I said, that's my baby. And they went on and on debating who baby it was. She said, she stole the baby out of the crib from me while I was sleeping. The other one said the other thing. But what did Solomon say? Wait a minute. I'm going to solve this problem. He asked one of his servicemen, give me a sword. Give me a sword. He said, I'll solve the problem. I'll cut the baby in half and give both of y'all equal portion of the baby. And when he took the sword, began to strike the baby, the real mother hollered. I said, no, let her have the baby. Don't kill the infant. And Solomon said, this is the real mother. So that's why I ask God knowledge to give me, to impart information. And I thank God for that. I thank God the way I worked in the civil rights struggle for over 60 years. Had an opportunity to meet Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Had a chance to meet Thurgood Marshall. I was president of the youth council. And I went upstairs to my pastor's house and met him. He said, who are you, young man? And I said, Attorney Marshall, my name is Grover Thornton. I am president of the youth NAACP council. And I was about 17 years old then at that time. I'm 88 now, so God has been good to me for the age and my mind. He's been good to me. And then I met Mrs. Constance Motley, who argued the case right here in Savannah, Georgia, to integrate Fred Westers and eventually build that his village. But they did not want a black lady to live in that Fred Wester complex. And she argued that case. Mrs. Constance Motley came on one day, cut on the television, and she had passed. I was really hurt. She was a very brilliant lawyer. She was the one that put the young man and the woman in the University of Georgia. And she was the one that handled the case to put James Merritt in the University of Mississippi. And if she had lived, she would have been the first. She was the first federal judge, African American. And if she had lived, she'd have been on that Supreme Court nomination that Mrs. Tangi won the other day. So I just thank God that I'm able to do these things. And I give him the praise and the glory and the strength that I do. I don't do nothing for no prestige, nothing other than I was a servant for my people. And I do not turn on my people. Never. You cannot pay me. Because I think about the unborn generations of black children that had not even been born. And what we had to endure. There has been no race that endured lynching, rape, couldn't learn to read. Everything suffering. And yet, God allowed us to live, to talk about it. So that's my thinking on that. Now I'm going to move to another subject about voting in Georgia. Now I'm going to talk about Mr. Herschel Walker, running against Reverend Warnock. Listen to me about this young man. I praise him of being a great football player. I remember once when I was working, I went to the University of Georgia to a meeting. I was there 2 days. And they had a big old place where you go eat and buy hot dogs and stuff like that. And this man had just decided to go professional football with a league that they was going to start in addition to the American League and the National Football League. He did get all this money to come out of the university, and he went to that. And this lady was serving hot dogs and everything. She was mad. So I was talking to a friend. I said, she was talking to somebody else. I didn't get into the conversation. It was not my business. But she said, well, he could have stayed to the end of the year, coming another year. He could have stayed. That boy took all that money and left. What is wrong with her? So I said to my friend, we were at lunchtime from the meeting. I said, she foolish. What does she think that man got an opportunity? He can go out here and get hurt real bad. His career is over. And eventually it did affect him in his brain because something is wrong with him. The other morning I was looking at the TV. The lady said, Morning Joe, Mika, the man's wife, she said, let me tell y'all something about Herschel Walker. So she showed, some of y'all might have looked at it. She showed Trump standing up there and he was at the podium and he took his finger and he pointed at Mr. Trump. He said, see this man over here? I'm quoting him. See this man over here? He's a great man. I want to be like him. So then Mika said, well, he wants to be like him. He said he worked with the Cobb County Police Department. They got no record of that. Then he said he had a big business with over 8,000 people, something else, no record of that. Then he said he worked with the FBI, no record of that. Then other people, I didn't hear this part, they said they've heard, they said they graduated from the University of Georgia. They said he was a valedictorian in high school, all of that was that. So Mika just said this, and I quote her. So you know what? He's exactly like Mr. Trump. He's a big liar. So I thought I'd throw that about him. And his mentality, he is very incompetent. Very incompetent. And Mr. Warnock worked all his life making things better for the citizens in Atlanta. And he's being used by Trump. My. How sad it is. It reminds me of that scandal, what I called him over there, Tim Scott. Had the audacity to vote against this black woman to get on the Supreme Court. Had the audacity not to vote for the $1,400 that Biden gave everybody on the rescue plan. And all these Negroes right there in South Carolina going to go vote for him. Where's they thinking? He didn't care nothing about them. He didn't care that $1,400 will help them during the pandemic period. He didn't care. He didn't care that he didn't vote for this woman to get on the Supreme Court when 3 white people did. That's what hurt me. Romney voted for him. If anybody should have been mad, Romney could have got mad because Obama beat him for the presidency. But that man looked at the woman's qualification. She received his vote. Ms. Kawasi from Hawaii, she voted for him. And, of course, Susan Collins. And that man made a fool out of her, Kavanaugh. He voted for him. That lady Barrett voted to do away with abortion. Garstret voted against abortion. Trump put all 3 of those people on that Supreme Court. Now, what is the solution that I said I could tell you about? Only one thing is a solution to solve this problem, and the women of this nation could enjoy abortion when they have to have it. And that is one thing, VOTE. Forget about any parties. The women better galvanize themselves and vote. You may be 18 or 19, you'll never want to have them. Why you got an opportunity? Because if we can get the women to put 2 more senators, where we have 3 senators there's 100 senators. And we got 51, 50-50, and Miss Vice President breaks the tie. And we can get 2 more senators. And all these wonderful things. Abortion becomes a federal law. And of course, it'll wind up in the Supreme Court. But they have to reword in such a manner that it will be legal. Like the president said, but that is the only solution to bring that in to that problem of abortion. Please, any woman 18 years old, get out and vote. We don't want everybody to vote. But if we get all these women and all these women who run behind Trump and idolize him, they better realize they can get abortion too. And they don't have no money to go pay to go to another state and get no abortion. But I gave you my personal view about the abortion, and sooner or later, y'all going to have that come out. Watch what I tell you. So we have a real good guest here today that I want to bring onto my show. She's a woman that I have the highest respect for her. She's done a great job. She was a former state senator, and I really think a lot of her. Can she bring on now Mrs. Regina Thomas, Senator Regina Thomas, state senator? Can she come on now? Ms. Gunn, what's the problem? We have a little technical problem. Bear with me for a moment while I try to correct the situation. What did you say? Well, did you contact her? Well, she got the link because she called me and I talked to her yesterday. And it was sent to her. Well, can y'all work on this problem while I speak on another issue? What did you say? Well, I will speak while y'all try to solve this little problem. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we do have a little technical problem. Sometimes I watch the TV and that happens to the TV and you know it. So you'll see that experience before, and let's see can we solve it. And I'll speak on something else while we're waiting to do that. You know, I spoke to you about this book a couple of months ago, Brown versus Board Education. Can you see this book? This is when the schools was integrated by the Supreme Court of the United States. And I told you all about the dolls and everything. But I wanted to tell you about 2 or 3 things that happened in this book when I read this book. I love to read, so sometimes I sit up 2 and 3 o'clock in the night reading. But this book, which I read, tells you about the problems and the struggle that NAACP had, the educated front of the NAACP to bring an end to segregated schools in the United States of America. So you see this lady holding this, she's sitting on the steps of the Supreme Court when Chief Justice Errol Warren wrote this magnificent decision, 9-0, that the segregation was wrong. I showed you how they had all the money and they gave the children secondary books. They gave the children no rise to the schools, offer the way they treated black children in this nation. So let me tell you about a young man named Laughlin. He wanted to get a doctorate degree in some educational course, and so the NAACP sued the University of Oklahoma for him. So he goes to the university, to court cases and arguing it for the case. Thurgood Marsh was arguing the case. So he won the right to go to the university on the decision that was in 1896, separate but equal. So when he got into the university, let me tell you what the white folk did. Lord, they have a lot to pay for. What they did, a child of God made in the same image of any other man, same problems white man have, black man have the same problems. You don't tell God how to make his people. God make all type of fish, and every fish got a different taste. Even got the mullet, which don't have no taste. But every fish, all the beautiful flowers God made. He didn't make one flower. He'd have been miserable with one flower. He made a multitude of flowers. So how you going to tell him about his people? He made a multitude of people. But all of us belong to him. Out of one blood, the scripture said, man was made. So anyway, at the university, when it was time to go to lunch, they had him separate but equal. They'll have him in the same lunchroom, eating with all the white citizens, all the white students, but they had him sitting in a separate place. He get the same thing at the same time, separate but equal. Then, of course, when they come to the classroom, they constructed a wall between him and a white boy sitting right next to him, so they put the wall right there. Marshall went right back to the court again and said how that was affecting his ability to read and reason and discuss issues with his former students. The federal judge knocked that wall right down in 24 hours. Said because what you were handicapping his ability to discuss issues, to change ideas with other people. So he won that victory. All these victories, ladies and gentlemen, even at the University of Georgia, but that was pretty neatly done. They didn't have another roof, there's only a few boys, but that Mississippi, great God Almighty, with Jim Marist. President Kennedy came on the television. Praised them on the football team, because they got a strong football team, as far as I'm concerned. But at that time, they had a pretty good football team. President Kennedy asked them to obey the law. He had to bring in the army. Several marshals got beaten, and one of them got killed. And they were riding around with the trucks with Confederate flags. Oh, my God, that was a time. But Alabama was not that bad. Judge Wallace stood in the door. Kennedy took his army and put all the men in the National Guards in the U.S. Army. And Wallace had to step out that door. So all these struggles black people had, they didn't come easy, ladies and gentlemen. The young people today, our families need to be much stronger and bond. Our children must be educated on all the things and the struggles that we went through, and then they can appreciate and make our race a better race. Who ever thought we'd have a black president and a vice president black? Nobody thought that. But everything came from struggles, hardships, and struggle. I have in my office on my wall from the morning news about Dr. King wrote his letter, which I read about 4 times. I mean, it's big. It's a lot of reading to read. But the first thing the minister said to the man in the newspaper, he should have waited. Well, we came in 1619, over 400 years. How much more time they want us to wait to be a first-class citizen in this nation? The first man died in the American Revolution was a black man. In the American Revolution was a black man. I can't call his name right now, but it may come to my mind. A black man. In every war. Not this month, but the next one I'm going to show you all on the television, on this screen here, about black flyers from Tuskegee had won this war. But you ain't going to know nothing about it. So people like me tell our children the contributions that this nation had made. They don't have to give you credit, but all of them have had people with operations, like I said before, the blood bank started by a black man. So all these things we have struggled to get to ourselves. Now, while I'm still waiting, Patrick was not able to get that link yet. They're still trying to get that link, ladies and gentlemen. Huh? I don't know what the problem is. They're trying to work on this technicality, ladies and gentlemen. Why I talk about these things still happening. And the next one I want to tell you about this. In this case, again, but one more thing I want to mention. Really, there's two more things in this book I think you ought to hear. There was a young man named Sweat, I believe his name was. He wanted to enter the University of Texas Law School. Of course, they wrote him back and said they could not admit him because he was a Negro. My. All the blacks built in this country. And that's what he received, that letter. So the NAACP took up his case into the federal court. So when they argued the federal court, they said, the judge told them, say, either you admit this black young man to the university or build another university for black students. So guess what they did, ladies and gentlemen? They went someplace and found an old building. They put volumes of law books in them. So Thurgood Marshall had the dean of the university system on the stand and asked him to describe for the court this law school that you just called some kind of word they have, Negro Law School or whatever the name was. So Thurgood Marshall asked him, describe this court, please. So he said, well, the first thing I'll say about it is that we have put volumes in it. Now, they have thousands of volumes in the big law school, and they bought several thousand volumes to put in the school. So then Thurgood Marshall said to him, say, okay, describe the school. Tell us, how many floors does the school have? So he thought about it. He said, it has two floors, a first floor and a second floor. And he said, by the way, let me say this to you, Mr. Marshall. This is a man on the stand. He said, this black school has something that the University of Texas does not have. So Thurgood Marshall said, well, tell us, what is that? They have a system of air conditioning in that school that we constructed for them. And the federal judge is listening. And so Marshall said, oh, y'all have air conditioning. So then he explained to us, what's on that second floor? So he said, oh, it's nice and all, it's pretty large and all. He said, am I right when I say this to you, that the reason why y'all have air conditioning in that building is because that second floor in that building is the attic? He was shocked that Marshall had all that information, that it was the attic. That's why they had air conditioning. And of course, the federal judge just struck all that down and say, either you admit him or the state build a multi-million-dollar library like the one that they have at the University of Georgia. And that young man was able to go to the University of Georgia. Now, you take right here in Savannah, Georgia, I have the highest respect for our former mayor, Mayor Johnson. He integrated Armstrong College, but he had a little rustle. But they didn't raise all that hell like they did at the University of Mississippi. It was terrible. And I honor Mr. Johnson for that, because it was not no easy thing for him to do. Probably the only black man in there, but all the white students. But I think that he didn't receive a lot of terrible things said to him. But I honor him for the stand that he did take to integrate that university. And so the last thing I like to say about this book is when Marshall was in the court one day, and by the way, South Carolina had a man who was one of the most constitutional lawyers, best in this nation, and his name was John Davis. He was an ambassador. He ran for president in the Republican Party once. And he argued the case for South Carolina. At that time, the purchasing power of a dollar was something. He was paid $100,000. At that time, was probably equal to about $1 million or so to argue the case for South Carolina. Because that was the first case that they brought in. They sued South Carolina, Washington, D.C., Kansas, Topeka, Kansas, Delaware, and Virginia. Those were the cases. Marshall had several other lawyers, one named Carter, and had a white Jewish lawyer named Greensbury. He argued one of the cases out of them 5 states. But Marshall took on the big one, the University of South Carolina, against Mr. John Davis, a tough, very credible constitutional lawyer. Of course, Marshall beat him 9-0. And in fact, ladies and gentlemen, our children didn't even know anything about our people. Marshall went to all of courts, the federal courts, from the district courts to the appellate court to the Supreme Court. 32 times and won 29 cases. Lost only 3 cases. Now, what a record that is. And when President Johnson put him on the Supreme Court, on the Supreme Court, all the Southern senators got mad. The man told one of them, told the other one, say, well, is it that you don't like him being a black man or you don't like his record? 32 times before the court and won 29 cases. His life was in danger a lot of times. He would go and defend these black men have been mistreated and jailed unconstitutionally. And some of the Ku Klux Klan people would be listening out for him. And they would move him sometimes from one house to another because they would want to kill him, assassinate him. But they would not be able to do it because these people really protected him. And he may be at this house tonight, or he's living with so-and-so. Next night he gone someplace else. Black people have had a lot of things done to them, ladies and gentlemen. And I've been knowing all the history from the time that I was working at the NAACP, like in the 1950s. A man named Jones, he and his wife were NAACP people, and they went out to some affair. And the Ku Klux Klan people sneaked into his house and put a time bomb under his bed. And when that man and his wife came home and went to bed, they detonated a bomb about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and blew their lives away. You know what they did in the church. Blew their lives away and killed these 4 little black girls. All the suffering that black folk had made in this country. That's why our children, we got to have our children to become better citizens. Stay away from them drugs. Make something out of yourselves. You got all the opportunities in the world to do so. Now, the next gentleman I'm going to talk, I'm still waiting for them trying to get that hookup with Senator Thomas. I feel very bad we haven't gotten her yet. What you say? I'm sorry.
She's in the studio and she's having technical problems on her end, her computer.
I can't hear you.
She's having technical problems.
You trying to solve the problem?
She's having technical problems on her computer. You have to continue talking.
Well, I'm still talking to the people about so many things for the time. I want to talk to you about this gentleman right here. And I know people up in their 50s, the 60s, the 70s, they know about him. Great baseball player, Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson. And I was talking to a white friend of mine the other day, and he sent me this about Jackie Robinson. He had this since the 50s. Let me tell you about this gentleman here, who became the first African-American in the National Baseball League, the Brooklyn Dodgers in Brooklyn, New York. That's where the Dodger Stadium was located. Jackie Robinson was an outstanding athlete at UCLA University of California. He played football, he played baseball, he played basketball. He was all-around athlete. And then he played with the American Negro League. There were several Negro leagues that was around the country, but they would not allow a black man to play in the National Baseball League. So a white Jewish man named Branch Rickey, he said it was time to let a black man with skills play in the National Baseball League. I keep saying thing about the football because I can't wait the next month when it starts. But anyway, Jackie Robinson signed a contract. And that was all over the world, all over the United States. The Brooklyn Dodgers hired an African-American. Now, Jackie Robinson was not the best. He was good now, but there was some people better than him. But you had more than that to deal with this situation of racism in this country. You had Satchel Paige, one of the greatest pitchers. He finally got into the barrier, the knockdown to get into the major leagues after Jackie Robinson. But his best days were gone, but he was able to pitch a few years. But they have, what's that noise coming in on me? Pat, what is that? Another thing coming in on me. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so sorry about this technical problem tonight. I get very disgusted. So anyway, let me finish about Jackie Robinson. When Jackie Robinson, when spring training, he went. First. He had it down in Florida. We'd always go later on, but he went to Montreal, Canada, and that's in the minor leagues. And when he got into the majors, oh my God! If you could ever get that movie 42, somebody playing that movie, I can't recollect who played Jackie Robinson, but that was just some of the things. You had a manager at the Philadelphia Phillies when they went there to play. First thing, let me come back to Savannah, Georgia. I saw him play.
It's on the screen.
Excuse me.
Thomas is right in front of you.
Say what?
He's right in front of you.
Who's that? Miss Thomas?
Yeah.
Hello? Miss Thomas?
Hold on. Hi there.
Hey, Miss
Hi.
Thomas. Excuse me one second. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll finish this story. Miss Thomas is now on the line. Again, I apologize for the technical problems that we've had, but you know they've had them on TV. You're watching something good and it goes off. But anyway, I'm happy to have you on here, Miss Thomas. How are you doing tonight?
I am wonderful. I do apologize for all the technical difficulties that I've had, but Tiffany was wonderful to helping me get in.
Well, I'm so glad of that because I would have been very hurt if you didn't come on here tonight after I talked to you several times. You know you're one of my
I was
favorite
trying.
people. I appreciate
I was
it, Tiffany.
trying. Thank you so much.
I just think a lot of you. You know that. I worked with you and you won your first race. You remember that, don't you?
Yes, you did. Yes.
And they quoted me in the paper. I said, well, I can't recollect the gentleman who was a good friend of mine, the white Jewish lawyer. And I said, he's a fine man. But I got to support Miss Thomas because Miss Thomas would set the stage for young people to come. And look how many people we've had in the Georgia legislature since you won that race. And I thank you for that. Now, Ms. Thomas, I know
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
I know you've been an outstanding person in our community, and I want to thank you for the service that you did do for us. You brought many, many dollars from the state to help us in these areas in Savannah, Georgia. And I know the citizens of Georgia appreciate that. But I want to ask you a question. Since you did run for mayor, and I certainly worked with you, and I certainly hoped you had been a successful person in that position of that job, because I know you would have been an excellent mayor. I know that for a fact, because I had your brochure on some of the things that you stood for and you wanted to see. But I want you to explain to the people from me, Mrs. Thomas, that this is this. I hear the word all the time, economic development. He's for economic development. You know, like I said on the radio when I was on there with Mr. Dunham, I'll be hearing that word all the time, but I don't never see no results. Now, the last time I knew, the poverty rate in Savannah was 32%. Has that decreased or still staying stable or an increase?
Well, according to my calculations, I think it's a little more than that now.
Oh, my gosh.
And I think, too, pardon me?
I'm waiting, and Bobby got that technical problem again.
No, it's okay, I think. I can hear you.
No, but the question I want to say, I want you to explain to the people, how do they arrive at this percentage on poverty, and what can we do to alleviate that situation? And I hear all the time about economic development, but I don't see no development going on. I don't see it.
Well, basically, it's catchphrase. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Basically, it's a catchphrase. Everyone talks about economic development because people want jobs. They want a livable way to be able to take care of it. They want to work, but basically, it's not evenly distributed. There are a lot of disparities. It's a lot of economic development going on, but not in our communities.
You see that? Now, would you say that has to come from the mayor and the councilman to bring economic development into our community? Is that their main function to do it?
I think it's not just the mayor and council, it's our elected officials from the national level on down to the local level. If we can get all of them working together to help the masses and not just pick and choose, then we will be able to get some things done.
Okay, good. Now, another question I want to ask you and a comment I want to make. You know, President Biden passed, the Congress passed the Reconstruction Bill on bridges and roads. Do you have any knowledge as to when and how did that money get down into it? Because we have a lot of bad streets still need a lot of work right here in Savannah, Georgia. And you have any knowledge of how that money would come and when would it come so they can do some construction work in our city?
Well, it's going to take time, I'm sure. There is definitely a process, and we would have to know who the fiduciary agent would be, whether it would be the state that would handle it or how it would come down. But naturally, our elected officials, we should have information on that.
Okay, next question I want to ask. Next question, Ms. Gunn, do you want to ask a question of her? I was asking Ms. Gunn, did she want to ask you a question?
Hi, Pat.
Can you hear her?
I cannot.
Pat, she cannot hear you. Oh, she's not on air, so I'll keep talking to you. The next question I want to ask you sort of slipped my mind for a moment, and that is when you look at the things that we're doing in Savannah, how would you rate in your mind on a scale of 1 to 10 how Savannah is doing economically?
Savannah may be doing better than the residents. I need to say that. We have a lot of growth. We have a lot of entry-level jobs that people are going into, but it's not something that's going to sustain them. So as far as Savannah is concerned and the tourism, they feel like they're doing very well, but the average citizen is not faring as well.
That's what I wanted to say. Now, right now they're trying to have the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I did a survey by calling down to the congressman's office, and I wanted to know exactly what the salary for a service that a representative made. And when I did the competition, it was $170,000 a year, and I did it all down to a year, a month, a week, an hour, and they were making $83 an hour. And you got the average person, the minimum wage is $7.25, but I know people make more than that. You got a right to pay people more, but you can't pay them less. And it's difficult to pay a person to live on $7-something an hour, $11 an hour. They'll at least make $15 an hour. When they make that a whole hour, that's a bit $30-something thousand a year. And if a man was married and his wife was making the same much, they could qualify to buy a property, a house for $60,000 a year, excluding all the red line and all other racist things that they bring against black people. So what's your thinking on that? You think we get that $15 an hour pass? And that would be a beneficial to people with low income?
I do not see why we shouldn't have done this long time ago. I mean, when I served in the General Assembly, we tried very hard. I mean, just tirelessly trying to get the minimum wage raised at least to that $15 an hour. And it was the hardest thing to do.
And they can't seem to get it done nationally. And they're making all this money. And they can't seem to get it done nationally. The next thing I want to say to you was and ask you, and that's about rent. Why can't they put a cap on rent?
The lobbyist pays, or they contribute or donate to the elected officials, and they have a strong voice. They have the money. They have deep pockets. And everyone is trying to make a dollar. Yeah, everything is going up. Paychecks are not going up. Social Security is not going up. but everything else is going up, and it's almost like extorting the poor people and to make sure that they stay poor.
That's a terrible thing for a country that's supposed to be so much democracy and everybody having a fair chance, which we do not have in this nation. Now, I know a friend of mine was paying $1,000 for an apartment out there in Pula. She gets a letter. She has three children. She gets a letter that effective such a date, her rent would be increased by $200, $1,200 a month. But I thought the local government could put, it doesn't have to come from Washington, does it? To put a cap on rent. They can't do that locally.
No, but that's a free and enterprising market. You can't regulate how much people charge. It would have to take everybody coming to the table and agreeing that, okay, we need to help. Because if the person that's in your home or in your building cannot afford to pay $1,200, how are they going to replace them? Because everyone's basically situation is the same. Some people are not going to live in certain areas. So we have to take that under consideration too. I have no idea how they can replace the people they are putting out because they've increased the rent. I think it's horrible.
Past horrible. They would displace people down in the historic district and remodel all those places. So beautiful. My friend and I were looking last week. We went to lunch right around all these new apartments, all these buildings going up. They displace people, and they can't afford to purchase a place or live in it when they get through buying it, doing the work. They purchase the place, renovate it, and they can't afford to live in it because the rent will be so high. And the last thing I want to ask you, ma'am, that has concerned me greatly, and that is right here in Forsyth Park, we still have Confederate statues in it. Why they can't be moving? They're moving them every other place. They're moving them from in up, and I understand that they're supposed to have some kind of agreement down in the city council. I don't know, but they would move it and put some kind of writing on this side for the Confederates, something there on this side here for the Union people. I don't know. Do you know anything about that? But when you look at the television in Virginia, Richmond, Virginia, which was the cradle of the Confederacy, they had the largest statue of Robert E. Lee. I was looking at it on TV when they was bringing it down. Big old crane bringing that multi-building. So why not Savannah can't move a little simple Confederate soldier? What's the whole up with that? The people now, I was sitting there, let me say something, man. I'm not trying to be a dirty person, a nasty person. I guess because when I came up, we had strong leadership. And I'm going to say this. We don't have no leadership here in the city. We do not have no strong leadership. Nobody speaks out on nothing. And I'll say, you look at a man like Dr. King, was but 27 years old. 27. And he turned this city and this country upside down. But we don't have no strong leadership here. Now, I got to give you credit to your face. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was just going to say that some people are compassionate, very compassionate about some of these issues. But in this climate, in today's climate, with the virus, the COVID, and with now the monkeypox, and with so many things going on and people being displaced, I think that we need to probably reprioritize how we get these things done. And the first thing that we should do is be our brothers and our sisters keepers.
Exactly.
I don't have a problem with the statues and them moving them, but at the end of the day, removing those statues and paying that money, it could help someone stay into their apartment. So we need to just reprioritize and look at that again and make sure that we hold our elected officials' feet to the fire, that they talk with the landlord, that they talk with people who are out there just trying to make sure that they are not taking advantage of people and creating another system of homelessness.
Well, we have a lot of homeless people in the street, and we really need to do something about those problems that we do have, because it affects people very badly. And when you think of people can't even get medical care, the governor, he canceled and refused to sign a bill for Medicaid for poor people in Georgia. That's horrible. And the government said, okay, we will set you up and pay for 2 years, 2 to 3 years, and after that, you pick it up. They wouldn't even do that. Thousands of people in Georgia, they do not have Medicaid, not to mention insurance for other purposes. It's sad in the richest country in the world.
It is sad, but excuse me.
Go ahead.
I wanted to say that it's not an easy job to represent people. It really isn't. It's a hard job. And I guess the people who are in charge or in office now doing the best that they are allowed to do. And when you stop thinking about people and caring about people and only care about yourself and making what you want to make and going home into your comfort zone and not caring about anybody else, people sleeping under bridges, on streets.
That's right.
That's right. You know, it's sad that we live in the country that is so rich, but people are not caring enough about people. That is one of the biggest problems that we have had. Everybody want to get theirs and hold on to it. But let's share the love. Let's share the wealth. And we have it.
That's true. And even from a national point of view, the government has never had a system of spreading the wealth equally among its citizens. This nation has always had it. We even had something called one time trickle down economics. You remember that?
I do.
We got little or nothing, the trickle down economics. So we just have these problems like that, and I don't think the people trying to address them. Just like the inflation that we have now. And I think one of the things too, Ms. Thomas, is that our state representatives and our people do not inform people about issues that's happening to this country. Just like now the gas problem came down a little bit. All of us are buying. I had a white friend of mine, and I said, "Oh, you been to the grocery store?" "Yeah, I spent all my money in," and give that to Biden. They don't understand the function of government. They don't understand economics. This is a world problem about the gas being high. The president has already asked the Congress to remove the gas tax for a while. And when you go buy gas, so much of that money goes to the federal government for gas tax. That would lower the price of gas. He asked them to go do more drilling. That would lower the price of gas. He's already going into our strategic oil that we got to keep millions and millions of barrels of oil, because you cannot run a country without oil. You got to have oil to have electrolytes. You got to have oil to run generators. You have to have oil to run cars that's turned into gas. So they're not trying to help the president, but so much the president can do. And our people just don't understand.
That's true, but also, now Georgia Power has gone to the Public Service Commission and they have asked to tax us, the consumer, the actual ratepayers, because they want to have some money put aside, billions and billions of dollars. Gas bill is going to start going up. We cannot afford that. So we have put people in place that we have not held their feet to the fire. We don't have enough people that's offering themselves to get out there and do the right thing. They may campaign on doing the right thing.
But they don't do it. Well, the same thing I was saying to you when I said about that statute. They don't speak out on nothing. A lot of our people don't even know, man. And I don't know why legislators don't do it. A lot of these men can vote. They don't know that they have a right to vote. So you run your constituents, you would have a meeting in a church. I want all young men who was incarcerated, and now you have your freedom. I want to tell you tonight, we have a meeting at such a place. We want to tell you what your rights are. They don't do it, but like you said, they're concerned about themselves and not others.
Well, I can tell you this. We all are going to go down together. I don't care how much money they have or their assets. We all are going to eventually go down together.
Sure, right.
And they're not going to know how to act, because, when you've been poor and when you've been hungry, it's not going to affect you as much as it's going to affect that person who has never been poor and who have never had to realize or understand where their next meal was coming from.
That's true. That's true. Well, you've been such an outstanding person on this show here tonight, and I want to apologize again for the little technical problems that we did have, but you have enlightened our people, and I'm so glad of that, to have you on the show, ma'am. It's an honor. You've always been one of my favorite people, and you will always be, and you're just so pretty with your hats. You're known as the hat lady because you're always beautiful with them, and I tell you that. So, again, Senator Thomas, I wish you would get back into politics because you were really concerned about your people. And that's what we need, people to be concerned about each other, and people who's in position of leadership should take the leadership. But sadly, I got to say, when I go back to the 50s and the 60s, we had good leaderships. We had great ministers that followed Mr. Law. It was just marvelous for me to grow up during those times. That's why I had opportunity to meet all those people, like I told you, because I was always involved in my community. And I will always say, and I got one statement I like to say as I close this program, is that this. I mean, like Ralph Mark Gilbert was my model. Nobody puts Grover Thornton in his hip pocket. I'll be working for the ungenerated born children who have not even come into the world. And that's what a lot of our foreparents did, praying that the day would come, that they will be free. And we're still, since 1619, still trying to be what? Free. Look at voter suppression. And we got to be willing to get out and vote, because the voteless people are helpless people.
Vote.
Thank you very much.
Vote. We need to vote.
We need to vote. We need to vote. And here it is right here, that I have right here. A voteless people is a helpless people. Voteless is helpless. And we must stand together and get out and vote. Senator Thomas, again, I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight. It was an honor I do talk to you from time to time, but it's an honor to have you on this program, that I only try to do my best to inform the community, because I love my community. I give my life to it. And I'm getting up in age now, and I don't know how many years I will have to be here, but I wanted to say that Grover did stand for his people.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. And you keep on keeping on.
Thank you, Mrs. Thomas. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank you for listening to the show. And I apologize again for those little technical problems, but it happens on the big TVs. There's a technical problem, but you work until we get it going, and we did do it. And so I thank you for listening to my show tonight, and I'll see you next month. Thank you. And I will continue with Mr. Robinson, because the things I will tell you about him will be impressive. Thank you very much.
I like that.